So literally, like after 30 days, or after 60 days, the tower's up and it's game on. And then at that point, you're just repeating the process. The curtain wall, he's doing a floor at a time. And right behind him, you're standing studs and running your ductwork risers. And then you're just cycling electrician, plumber, sheetrock, tape and spackle, tile, flooring, and you're just going up the building, and that's really it. You're just repeating the process and adding a couple zeros on the funding side.
What's up, everybody? It's Jamel Gibbs, your family-oriented entrepreneur. And on this channel, we teach real estate investors and entrepreneurs how to create time and freedom through proven real estate investing strategies. Welcome to the Business and Investing Podcast, where you learn all things business and investing related. So today we're going to talk about a topic that I know you guys are particularly interested in because a lot of you guys are brand new. I do pay attention to what's happening on the YouTube channel and on the podcast and things like that. Now, I just want to let you guys know this podcast is spread throughout the entire world. I really appreciate the support that we're getting on this podcast. So let's keep pumping out these podcast episodes so that you guys can continue to learn. But going back to what I wanted to say, I know a lot of you guys are brand new and you want to just figure out how to get started or how to set up your business the right way in order to be effective in your real estate investing business. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about today with my man, Ken Van Liew. What's up, man?
How are you, brother? It's great to see you.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure, bro. So we were together, I want to say 3-4 months ago, was it?
Yep.
About 3 months ago in Tampa.
Yes, sir.
And I actually had you on a previous video, but I wanted to get you back on the line on this particular podcast because number one, you're a gold mine of information. We were just talking right before the call, and you have 45 acres that you're about to develop here in North Carolina, all the way from New Jersey. Let me change that, man. New Jersey.
And I sat in a table in Brooklyn every Sunday too. My mom's from your home turf, so
yeah, man. You built up, exactly, Court Street. So I grew up right in Red Hook, that, which is, I used to spend a lot of time on Court Street. I used to work at Bagels by the Park.
Yeah.
In Carroll Gardens.
Absolutely.
I had a little job there.
Scotto Funeral Homes, my cousins.
Wow, man.
Scotto's first place. On first place. Yeah. My mom went to St. Mary's Church right there.
Right there on Court Street, man.
Yeah, right there on Court Street. Yeah.
And guess what? World. I used to play for St. Mary's basketball team when I was a kid.
I'm telling my mom that tonight, man.
Yeah, man.
That's a small world. Yeah. My grandfather owned literally the property right on the corner across from St. Mary's, a little fish market there.
Yep.
And then there was I think the boys had a little card game going in the down floor. And my mom and dad, my mom lived upstairs with grandpa and grandma right there. Yep.
So we had Visitation, which was in the back of Red Hook. And then we had St. Mary's, and I played for both teams. There was a guy named Paul Giaffoni who used to have a funeral home on Van Brunt Street in Red Hook. I think he still has it, as a matter of fact. I'm not sure, but he ran the CYO basketball league, and we used to play for that team, man. So small world, man. Small world. But listen, man, we're going to cover a lot. So you've done everything from building up skyscrapers to commercial real estate to residential and everything in between. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, bro?
Sure. I got started a while ago. So, I get to bring back a little wisdom. And, the beauty of it is when I first got started, I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. So I learned the hard way. Mm-hmm. And, it built character. So that was the good news. And the one thing I always say is, I learned kind of in reverse. So I preach from, it's okay to learn from the top down and be a little confused because you have bigger breakthroughs and, you get to learn a little bit more, right? So even though you're getting started, if you have that mindset of big time thinking with a long-term vision, it will all come true, and that's how I started. But I started, I really bringing some of my sports attributes to the table because I wasn't a great student, and I thank God I met my wife when I was taking calculus 2 for the 3rd time. She taught me how to study. And then 3 years later, I received an engineering degree. And in engineering, civil engineering, that senior year, I won this design award. It was a 13-acre site that I literally civil engineered. And it kind of planted this seed, but I didn't know anything about real estate. And, dad just telling, get your degree, go work, be a civil engineer, you'll have a good career. And I went in and I started civil engineering. I couldn't sit at the desk. I mean, literally like 1 year, I was like, I got to get out in the field. I had some construction jobs during my summer, interns. I worked for the Port Authority. Next thing you know, about a year out of school, I was building this 32-unit building in Poughkeepsie, New York. And by the time I ended up getting the 4 years of experience for to take my professional engineer's exam, I was already making more money in construction. So I really never went back to engineering other than I got the license to open up the door. So I kind of started in engineering, not knowing, what I was doing. I was a superintendent in New York City, building skyscrapers. And one day I was standing there, literally looking out at the World Trade Center. It was 1992, I guess it was, and I started to think like, I got to make something happen. I just had my twins. And, it took about 7 years before I built up $100,000 debt. And I was like, I now definitely got to do something. And I jumped in to real estate, back to that top-down thinking approach with like, how can I break out into real estate and pay myself? So I had this thing in my head, I figured out 9 ways to earn fees in real estate development. And my first deal was a $17 million project where I said, I'll pay myself a 5% development fee, 3% construction management fee, and 8% general conditions. That'll be a great payday, even if I don't get any ownership. And I went out and did it. My first project was a $17 million assisted living. We did that. And then we worked in reverse. And before I wrote the book, we did 137 residential deals in 1 year. And we were teaching people how to get their business started, how to take advantage of taxation. I came out with my taxation filtration system, where I could show you how to put $100,000 through and only pay taxes on 30 grand. And that's what people want to know when they're getting started, just as long as they're not going to go to jail, which I made my accountant like, just show me where the fine line is, brother. Because we're starting on a shoestring here, and that's what they did. My advisors kept me out of trouble, had a good lawyer, had a good accountant, and just started from there. It was a mouthful there for you, brother.
No, that's good stuff, man. So was it an easy transition for you? Like, so you were working for a company, obviously, right? And then you ended up becoming an investor, man. So what was that transition like?
Great question. So, I went from, working for a construction management company. They were, Bovis, Liew McGovern Bovis, they restored the Statue of Liberty. We did, Metro Tech, which was $1 billion project. Mm-hmm. And, I went from there to work for some developers. So I worked for Davis and Eichner and did 80th and 3rd, 64th Street. And then I guess it was about, it's probably 1996. I did a short stint with a company. It was actually a women's business owned enterprise that I brought to 40 million from 5. And I was like, okay, I got to do this myself. So it was probably, 99 when I broke out. And, I may have lost track of the timeline there, but when I broke out in that, I really felt confident that if I could build big buildings and do little buildings, now was time to kind of go out of my own business. So in 97, I think I formed a company. It wasn't until 99 until I opened the door. So it was probably 96. It was probably a 3-year transition to get the courage up and, a lot of sleepless nights figuring out, what's going to happen when that paycheck ends. And what I actually did that helped with the transition is I created an entity, because I created this company called the parent company, and then I created an LLC where I brought members into the LLC and I gave them first right of refusal on all my investments. Mm-hmm. And it was like a $10,000 buy-in. So that gave me a little bit of funding to kind of open the door. And then on my first deal, I just started raising money right away. Each tranche was like $400,000, and I started paying myself a real estate development fee. And that's how I kind of got started in the transition until I ended up owning some real estate that, started paying the bills. But yeah, it was it was a fee transition, really.
You know what I was doing in 92, 96, 99?
Were you in high school or what?
Yeah, basically. I was in junior high. Well, I was transitioning into junior high school. I went to 51s up on Fifth Avenue. Back in 92. No, was that 94? I went there. And then 96, I was in high school. So 99 is when I graduated, man. So while you were doing big commercial deals, man, I was still trying to figure out life and
Yeah,
still
got it.
schooling. Yeah,
Got
man.
it. So I
OG in the
graduated in
game.
79. So I got 20 years on you. So
Got
you
man.
were going to high school. You lived in Brooklyn at the time, and where was the high
Yeah.
school at?
It was in
Wow.
Bay Ridge. I went to telecommunications in Bay Ridge, right on what is that, 68th Street?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I know Brooklyn has Brooklyn Tech over there. They got that real smart high school. I was like,
yeah,
high school is different in New York. You got to apply to like go to high school and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. So obviously, transitioning from your job into now being responsible for the investing side of things and taking on your own projects takes a mindset shift.
Yeah.
How did that affect you? Like, what was the mindset shift for you?
Yeah, it didn't happen right away. It started off nice because I literally signed, this $10 million development and then signed a development agreement with myself and started writing a check for $27,000 a month. It wasn't until the towers collapsed in 2000 when one of the bottoms fell out for me and I was sitting there. I think I got down to like my last 10 grand or something. And then I landed this construction project to renovate a geriatrics facility. And by that time, the assisted living wasn't generating cash. So, it was at that point when I wasn't paying myself, I was like, wow, what happens during the periods when you don't have a development project paying you?
Right.
So that's when I actually leaned back and started doing a little bit of contracting work for third parties just to kind of pay the bills. I actually renovated the country club I belonged to. And then I did a geriatrics facility and then got at my next development. So I found that, during this entitlement process, I either have to pack the pipeline so that developments fill those voids or do a little bit of contracting. So it was always, a little bit of utilizing my expertise in that transition, and I can't say that I ever used my engineering. I had the license, but, I never practiced engineering. So, it was really just hustling until I then got into doing, some wholesaling with the residential where I had the cash flow coming in.
In New York.
Well, that was actually in Jersey thereafter.
In
But in 2008, when I was doing a transition, I did, if you're familiar with, you probably are, Keene University. Union Station is one of the train lines that goes into Manhattan, into Penn Station. And I did 58 condo units right on there, and we called it a transit village. So in 2008, which was, 7 or 8 years later, it took me, finally to figure it out, doing fix and flips, building houses, doing developments, blending it all together. Little GC work was going to keep, the 40 hours or, live, or 60 hours, and you keep the lights on,
Yeah.
Because when you get started, playing the big game, the bills are just as much as the money coming in,
Oh, absolutely, man. So obviously, you got a ton of experience. You've been through the ringer in this business. You spoke about 9/11, and 9/11, I was still on Wall Street. And then that's actually 9/11 is what actually transitioned me into real estate, because Wall Street wasn't the company I was working for had to shut down after everybody started pulling their money out. But you've been able to do some incredible things in this business. What obstacles did you face over the years?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, when yeah, I mean, literally when the towers collapsed, I almost went out of business. I thank my success with being literally with Tony Robbins the day that the towers collapsed. I couldn't get out of Hawaii. I was stuck with him for like 7 days. And, when I came back, my friend worked for Cantor Fitzgerald. He died.
In the towers?
Yeah. He was, yeah, I knew he was, he was at his desk every day at 7. So, when I saw that. I was in Hawaii when I watched the towers going down. I was like, okay, let me call. But yeah, that was my first blow. And I was like delirious because it was like the first time that happened to me. And then it happened again in 2008. I was partners. I was at the top of the world. I finished 240 Park Avenue. We bought the toy building, that triangular building on Broadway. We bought St. Vincent's Hospital. We were going to do 1,000 residential units, and we owned a whole city block on 6th Avenue. And Lehman Brothers was our partner. And in one day, we literally lost $330 million.
Yep.
And I was trying to figure out what building I was going to jump off of, because like real estate and everything I ever learned, went south. The whole partnership blew up. I literally, I don't know if you ever heard the story, started doing magic. And I was a magician since I was 12 years old. You probably see me playing with cards here, but I studied with Joel Bauer. And he goes, what'd you do? What have you done? I said, well, I built an 8-figure deal with no money down. And that's what transitioned me into, meeting, I call them the Matt Andrews guys of the world, the gurus.
Yeah.
But that's when I got in a room and I created 8-figure deals with no money down, which was how I built my $17 million project, to try to get my head out of my rear, because, I had basically said, okay, real estate's going to be done for a while. 505 projects stopped in New York City. There were cranes just stopped all over the air. And I literally contracted to buy Stewart's Root Beer. I was going to bring the beverage to China. I had another like car simonizing company. I wanted nothing to do with real estate. And through doing some magic, doing trade shows, and then creating that program, Joel's like, get in a room and record what you did. And I got in a room and I created 8-figure deals with no money down. I created this 800-page manual and all these videos of me recording. And that was my first program I created. So
this was in 08?
That was in 08. Yeah.
08, man. So that's how you did that magic trick when we was in that's how you did that card trick when we was in and I was trying to figure it out in Tampa.
I think I was doing cards and coins or something, but
I think it was a coin.
Yeah. Magic's, it's like when you're an artist, you're always painting or playing with a trick or something. But yeah, magic's always been in my life. And then it took probably a good 3 years before I decided to come back. And my first project coming out of that like bombardment was a brownstone in Brooklyn that I made a couple $100,000 on. Was
that Fort Greene or?
It was, and I can't think of the darn address right now, but it wasn't, it was
Brooklyn Heights, maybe.
It was over in Brooklyn Heights. Yeah,
gotcha.
Right off of Brooklyn Heights. Yeah, it was walking distance from Metro Tech. But
gotcha.
Yeah, I mean that, I made a couple $100,000 off that. And then, it got interesting because I caught the attention just from some old players that were in the industry. And I went into a partnership with a guy who had a non-union construction company. And in, I guess it was 2012, 13, 14, 15, we did 300 units in New York City, and we started a concrete company. I literally poured 4 or 5 30-story towers in concrete, hanging out with all the gangsters. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, but made a lot of money. And in 2016 is when I created Flippin' USA, Flippin' New Jersey. And that's when we started scraping auction sites and did the 137 deals in 2017. And then 18, I started thinking about the book. The book came out in 19. And then at the end of 19, we started buying property. So that's been my journey,
That's a great journey, man. So obviously you have a step-by-step process. Like me, you went from rags to riches and back to rags and then back to riches, right? Yeah. So why don't we provide our listeners with a step-by-step process, man? How should our listeners set up their business the right way for success?
Yes. Perfect question. So first thing is, don't hesitate in setting it up, right? Because a lot of times we're still thinking about it, and you just have to throw the hat over the fence based on one simple fact. You get to write off immediate expenses and become a business owner and take advantage of all the luxuries of being an entrepreneur. So a lot of people that hesitate, maybe hesitating because of knowledge. So if you got to get out there and get some knowledge, educate yourself in the different entity structures, I'd recommend, not just keep it simple at first, because I like to complicate things. When I started, I created a C Corp that was paying an S Corp that was paying two LLCs that were paying my children. And that was the way that I kind of did my taxation filtration. I always tell people, if you're not familiar, there are some companies out there that'll assist you with opening up an entity, but you can, essentially go to any state that you're at. I typically open up entities in either Delaware or, in Nevada, because there's some tax advantages, but get yourself set up with a limited liability company and do some research and begin to look at all the, expenses you can write off. Because if you're immediately in business, you got your telephone expense, you got your auto, you could write off, nowadays with all this COVID stuff, a portion of your home office, and really take advantage and set yourself up, as my accountant taught me, with all the tax advantages that you get as an entrepreneur, and that's, I would think step one, getting the structure set up. Step two, which is kind of coincide with step one, you obviously want to put your plan together, what your business plan is. Now, I may be a little bit different because I was a C student in college. If I was an A student, I may be telling you to write the full report, but I like to help people and give them a template and go, here's a report that I wrote, just redline it based on what's coming through your head. Like, what do when did you start your company? What is your company to provide? And from that red line, extract it and create what I call is a company one sheet. And I have a lot on one sheet of paper, but it's a little bit different in your presentation other than just giving somebody a business card. And it gives you a little bit more gravitational pull. So I like to kind of think through your plan of your business and then take, that business plan that no one's going to probably read and put it on a real powerful one sheet and really lay out that plan. And then, if you're, there's a lot of different steps, but, step three, which I think is probably just as important as step one and two, is, you have to have systems in place, right? I don't know if I mentioned it, but, when I looked at what I did in skyscrapers, would had 500 moving parts, and I'm like, okay, I could build this thing, but what's real estate about? And real estate's really finding, funding, and facilitating the process, right? If you were just to simplify it, 1, 2, 3. And, these are the systems that you have to put in place, because if you don't have systems, you're essentially, putting yourself in a category. I would say 90% of people without systems have a good probability of failing.
Yep.
So, you want to have systems in to find property, right? And there's tons of systems out there. And then look at the micro distinctions on how people are finding property and try to differentiate yourself. And that's where I also get into, talk about, real estate's all location, location, location. When I came from New York, I was all about presentation, presentation, presentation. So mine had a little flair to it, but the residential investors that looked at my presentation were like, who is this guy? He ain't like that normal residential investor, or residential guy, and I was able to have a little bit more of a gravitational pull, so systems and put your systems around finding it and have backup systems, and don't be afraid to try things the old fashioned way, and always be looking to improve your systems, because right when you think you have all the systems that are working for you, there's always something a little bit better, and then on, funding, once again, the presentation applies a lot also, but there's a little bit of a system to funding, and, you could get stuck in trying to raise money, all the time, because it's a job in itself. So the whole funding aspect, and the good news is when you're involved in the residential or the wholesaling, you have the luxury of private lending and you have hard money lenders, and it makes it a lot easier versus when you take a step up in the commercial where you're getting out there and dealing with your high net individuals and things like that. And you have to step up your presentation and spend a little bit more on marketing. But when you're thinking that way and using that thought process, just, doing your day-to-day thing in the residential, you just have a micro distinction and you're a step above everybody else. So, a little bit on that. And then facilitation, of the investments, if you're doing wholesaling, you want your assignment process to be down to a science, have your template, have your scripting, if there's a process, and I used to call my property analyzers, where they would be calling the foreclosures attorney, checking to see if it's in the flood zone, checking to see if there's any utility zone, seeing if there's a condo association. My guys were in the field with the bank keys, going into the houses, taking pictures. Everybody was feeding into a Facebook system. Bids were being sent out to the guy, right? Those were our systems on the day of the auction so that we can get 3 or 4 deals, and without those systems and, field reconnaissance and, property analyzers, it just doesn't happen. But all that didn't happen overnight, right? We put scraping software in place to help us find the data. We had a system in place to analyze the deal. We had certain phone calls that had to be made. We had certain pictures that the field guys had to take. And that was all based on the foundation that we started building that I was mentioning before, right? Structure of the entity, taxation advantages, understanding your plan, what your mission is, having systems in place, and then full speed execution,
That's it, man. So you want to get set up the right way. Once you get set up, have that game plan, then put some systems in place, then you get the funding, then you facilitate, then you execute. That's pretty much what I got out of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can complicate it and make it longer, but I would like to keep it simple.
Oh, that's simple, man. That's good stuff, man.
Yeah, it's not that complicated. I've made it complicated, and for guys that out there that that are in taxation and finance and engineering, this is pretty easy compared to all that stuff,
So when you look at your businesses, you've done a little bit of residential, you've done some commercial, you've done, pretty much everything, right? Do you use the same strategy for each? Do you use the same strategy for each business model, if that makes sense?
Type of real estate type of thing?
Each type of real estate transaction.
Yeah, good question. It's funny because I've even found myself doing fix and flips using the same type of analogy on how I would reverse engineer the structure of a larger development, where, I'll look at it, from I call it a paper napkin standpoint, like, okay, the total, it's total cost or total, expenditure. I call it total development cost. I just think that way, and if you're in on a property for 200 and, and you think you're going to be in for 200, I just rule of thumb, I'll be conservative and say you need about 30% equity. So then I know my calculations are coming out, figure out what my cash flow is, do a quick cash on cash analysis, throw it into, an IRR if I was going to hold it for 10 years. And when they see you do that little kind of analysis on a residential, they're like, yeah, I'll give you some money, and, so I do find myself and, but then I always get back to this theory about try to get it all on one sheet. So if I'm analyzing a residential deal, I'll have the full analysis on one sheet from a stabilization standpoint, which I show you how to do it. And another sheet will just show you a 10-year cash flow. Because that's really what your investors want to look at, like what's the duration of the investment? What are they going to make? And, what's the long term on it? Because a lot of times you get, your depreciation, you get your reduction of principal benefits, and all those little items add up to your rate of return.
How hard is it to get how hard is it to transition from residential to commercial and building skyscrapers and stuff like that?
Now that I did it in reverse, I would have to say it, you may have heard me say it, like if you're going to build a skyscraper, you're building 30 houses on top of each other because you're literally doing the same thing over and over. When I tell you, the green fence goes up, you've seen hundreds of them in Brooklyn and New York, you don't see anything for 6 months. And then all of a sudden, when I was in the concrete business, we would pour a floor every 4 days. It was called the 4-day cycle. So literally, like after 30 days, or after 60 days, the tower's up and it's game on. And then at that point, you're just repeating the process. The curtain wall, he's doing a floor at a time. And right behind him, you're standing studs and running your ductwork risers. And then you're just cycling electrician, plumber, sheetrock, tape and spackle, tile, flooring. And you're just going up the building, and that's really it. You know, you're just repeating the process and adding a couple zeros on the funding side.
That's all it is, man. So a
That's
lot
all
of
it is.
people, a lot of us mentally will overcomplicate that, but it's really simple when you look at it from, a grand scheme of things, when you look at it from a bird's eye view, right?
Yeah, it's simple in the sense that, okay, we've all grabbed an 800-pound gorilla. Let's just say this one's 1,200 pounds or about the size of your bicep, so it takes you a minute to get your arm around it. But, you just keep hugging that gorilla and then you get your arms around it,
Yeah.
or you take in one bite at a time. We don't build skyscrapers like that. Like when you go back to Brooklyn and you look at Brooklyn Union Gas headquarters, we spent, like 12 months building that on paper. That foundation was, I think it was 500 feet long. It was amazing,
Mhm.
and I'll never forget it, and
Yeah.
when I stood on top of that building looking out at the trade center, I'm like, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Good stuff. Great stuff, man. I really appreciate you sharing all of this information, man. If our listeners wanted to get in contact with you, where should they go, Ken?
Yeah, and let's figure out what we can do for your listeners there and get started. Maybe we do some type of master class. But we have the 11millionairesecrets.com, which is just a gift on some of the secrets I learned. And you can go to kendanlieu.com, and there are free 45-minute strategy sessions, which I actually do myself because I don't drive traffic. I just, I do some podcasts. If people come on, I get a couple calls a week. So I actually do pick up the phone. But yeah, I'd love to pick people up. And we also have our global real estate investment enterprise, which I didn't even have a chance to tell you, is just an ecosystem that I created that I'd love to have you part of. And we'll talk about that in another show,
Absolutely, man. And I know you have a YouTube page as well. I'm going to be linking that. I'm gonna link all of this stuff in the description box for you guys to be able to participate with Ken. He's doing some big things. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you can hear it. The guy knows he knows his stuff, knows what he's talking about, and he's actually out here in the trenches doing deals. That's what it's all about. He's making money right now, right?
Yeah, and when you call me, just tell me, Jamel sent you, and we're giving all kinds of discounts. I'm not here to make money, man. If you come here and you tell me what you want to achieve, my goal is to make you achieve that. That's it.
That's it, man. So look, it's been look, there's a lot of information that we covered today. A lot of you guys are brand new. The goal today was to help you get set up, right? Ken gave you a 6-step process on how to do that the right way. And a lot of it is just basically getting set up and understanding what goes on after that. If you notice, he talked about systems a lot, right? If your systems aren't in place, then you're going to be out of place, right? So you need to have systems in place in your business. So consider getting set up the right way. Talk to some tax professionals, some attorneys, right? But also talk to Ken, because he's done this and he knows exactly what you need to do to go from where you are to where you want to go. So Ken, we really appreciate you, man. If you had to provide some last words for our listeners, what would those words be?
Yeah, time is our most valuable commodity. I've really taken heart to time blocking this year and writing down, what I believe are, the things that are most important, which is, your business, your relationships, and your health. And from those 3 things, you can come up with 3 great things to make every day phenomenal. And what I found to be totally successful is measuring, right? So measure at the end of every day on how your day went, as planned versus as built. That's a little building technology term we use, as planned versus as built. And one thing I found very successful is that people have a tendency to think that they're a failure when in reality they're failing a measurement. And one of the games that I've been playing over the years is I measure my personal and business growth on a daily basis on a 1 to 10. And I play around with it. So I say, hey, Jamel, my personal today was only a 7 because I didn't get my workout in, and I left my iPads home and it was raining or something. It could, it wasn't a perfect day. And my business was a 9 because I had 2 great sales calls and the meeting went great. And it's called quality quantifying. And I just find between the quality quantifying and time blocking, you really could appreciate life, because you don't let the world of distractions around you. I found that my success came from deep work. And I realized that with all the internet and all of the social media, that life is one huge distraction.
Mm.
And you got a time block to get into your deep work to get your most production. People that do deep work have like results, like you hear Grant Cardone talk about 10x. People that are in deep work have resulted in like 40x. Like people, like scientists producing Nobel Peace Prize, and people writing 20 books. These are people that are in that deep work zone. And that's the wisdom I leave with everybody. And in addition to your morning routine, try an evening routine just of gratitude, and it's all going to pay it forward.
Love it. Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, my man, Ken Van Liew. He is a real estate expert. Definitely check out all of the links in the description box that I'm going to provide for you right below this video. And also reach out to Ken. He wants to hear from you. He wants to do business with you. And we're planning on having him back for several other segments, because I'm telling you, the guy is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to different aspects of real estate and business in general. So what else do you guys want to hear from Ken? Do me a favor, leave a comment in the comment section. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell, and share this podcast with anyone who's looking to get started in real estate. And make sure you check out Ken's YouTube page. He has a lot of good information on there, a lot of great information on there. And I think it'll help you guys out as well. Really appreciate you guys joining us, listening in today. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.